any mistakes, errors, questions you don't know the answer to, don't want to answer, just let me know and I can edit that out. Okay. Okay, here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Goway Industry Insider Webinar series. Today, for those who have been listening to our webinars and podcasts actually of late, will have probably picked up a bit of a trend, and there's a bit of a focus on Japan, which is what today's subject matter is. And the reason for that is we are in partnership with the Japan National Tourism Organization to promote Japan. We've also just come out of the Goway Asia show, which had a very strong feature on Japan as well. So what we want to do in this next little push is obviously focus on the big sites of Japan, which is the Golden Route, which I'll let our guest expand upon in a moment. But we also want to bring to your attention as our travel partners out there that there's more to Japan than the Golden Route. So today will be a 101 on Japan in general, with a focus on the Golden Route. And Rose, our guest, will expand a little bit on that, tease you a little bit to the other things that Japan has on offer. And our podcast, which is, we're not sure when it's scheduled, but it'll be soon thereafter the webinar, will take a deep dive into other areas of Japan, because like most countries, there's the focal point, but then there are so many other areas of a country to explore, which often go unexplored. But our goal is here to expand Japan to you, our travel partners, and you in turn to your clients out there. And the other big thing about our partnership with JNTO is that all of this will finalize with a FAM later in the year. I think it's scheduled for December, though dates as always with FAMs a little bit up in the air. But I'm going to have to put my glasses on because I'm getting old and getting blind. But the FAM will be Japan beyond the Golden Route. 10 days, 9 nights, 2 nights in Fukuoka, 1 night in Beppu, 3 nights Kyoto, 1 night Mount Koya, and 2 nights in Osaka. So it's a very exciting FAM, again, a little bit out of the norm. Now, having blabbed on for the last 5 minutes, let me introduce our guest from JNTO, Rose Lifschitz. How are you, Rose? How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Very well. I always ask this question. Where are you based? Are you coming to us from New York, LA?
I'm coming to you from LA.
LA. So where do JNTO have offices in North America?
So we have offices in Toronto. We also have one in Toronto. We have one in Mexico, and then we have New York and Los Angeles. So 4 total in North America.
Okay. So any of our partners out there, if you want direct support from JNTO, you can access or reach out to those offices as well for marketing support, that type of thing as well. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention about the FAM trip is to qualify for the FAM, you need to be registered with Goway. So if you're watching this webinar, you probably are. You need to listen and pay attention to this webinar. There will be a code at the end that I will give you that you will need to submit when you want to enter into the FAM. You must complete or listen to the podcast, which will also have a different code that you'll need to submit. And you need to, if you haven't already, completed the modules on Japan in the GowayPro Travel Academy. I believe there are 6 modules because we look at, again, the heart of Japan plus the other areas. Plus we focus in on train travel, which is big in Japan, as in a way of getting around things like the ryokan as well, which is a very popular choice of accommodation, which I'm sure Rose will expand upon. Rose and I have spoken in the past on podcasts and webinars, but let me ask, Rose, with your surname, it's not a Japanese surname, but I believe you have some Japanese heritage, if I'm not mistaken, from memory?
I don't have heritage, but I did live in Japan.
That's right, yes.
I lived there for almost 10 years.
That's right. So you speak Japanese?
I do.
Yeah. And how long have you been looking after Japan or basically repping Japan?
From JNTO, I've been here. I think this is my 4th year.
Okay. So were you born in the States, I gather?
I was born in LA, born and raised here. So I went to Japan and then came back home.
Okay, then. So what drew you to Japan and in turn, what led you to stay there for up to 10 years?
I think for a lot of people, their interest in Japan tends to come from like a specific pull. In my case, I listened to a lot of Japanese music, watched a lot of TV. I have fond memories of watching Sailor Moon as a kid. And so I think that just kind of sparked the interest. And then I decided to study abroad there, because I was studying Japanese in college and I just loved living there. So I decided to take the leap and I moved there to teach English and then later worked at an information center doing tours.
Okay. So your interest in Japan when you were younger was through what? The more
I would
modern
say
culture,
pop culture, media, that sort of thing. I think that's what tends to get people interested at first, and then they kind of get a wider breadth as they explore the country and start appreciating all the other elements.
Right. So now again, I haven't experienced Japan anywhere near the level you have, living there, etc. I've been once or twice and had that periphery sort of sensation and experience. But I've always been fascinated from the older culture, right, the ancient culture of Japan. So let me ask you, as a younger person than me and also your initial attraction being modern pop culture, when you got to Japan, particularly as you started to live there, did you get a greater appreciation or a better understanding of the sort of old Japan, the old culture, and how it sort of permeates through modern Japan?
Yeah, I think that's the experience a lot of people have. People assume Japan is this like modern technological wonderland, or they have, their sort of preconceptions based on their interest. But then when you go, you kind of see how seamlessly Japan incorporates all of that like tradition and history and culture into the modern world. So, you can be strolling around a large city and then walk right into a shrine or a temple or walk by a castle. You just see all of that preserved history kind of living in harmony with the modern day.
Now, my experience my more in-depth experiences is within Latin America, and that's what I see in what we term the Andean countries, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, where you see the ancient Inca, for the one of a better, there are other cultures, but primarily Inca is how it's grouped. And you see that modern, or that culture still, again, intertwined with modern day Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia, etc. And in my time guiding down there, I saw it not change dramatically, but slowly change where the more modern world was taking over even the indigenous and older cultures. Is that happening in Japan because it's such a faster developing technological country? Is that taking over and leaving behind the sort of famed, I don't want to say cliche, but, the expected, or what people may expect when they go to see that ancient culture? Is it taking over, or is the old culture still hanging in there?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so because, when you go to Japan, you do see all of these really meticulously preserved elements of the culture. And, when you go around these even like large cities, even like Tokyo, you can see them very meticulously preserved. Of course, then there are cities like, Kyoto or Kanazawa that not only have that culture still present, but it's so prominent, whether you're strolling these old geisha districts or, you're walking post towns that have been around for hundreds of years. I don't think that the modern is overtaking. I think there's this really delicate but well-maintained balance between the two in Japan.
Yeah, I like what you said there. It's a well-maintained balance. So they're conscious of, I assume, I'm making an assumption here, that they don't want to let that balance or the old culture fade away over the new. So to start working our way towards what you were speaking about today, the Golden Route and sort of the 101 of Japan, I would assume because the Golden Route is so popular that when people choose to visit Japan, that will be the Golden Route. And I'll let you expand on what that actually means in your presentation. But I believe that part of the reason that's so popular is you get what we just discussed. You get the new modern Japan with a good taste of the old Japan. Is that fair about the Golden Route experience?
Yeah, I would say so. So what I like to tell people is that it's kind of a nice snapshot of the country. The Golden Route is typically good for about 7 to 10 days. And of course, to see the entire country in like a week and a half seems like a really arduous task. But when you do the Golden Route, you're getting kind of all of that big city in Tokyo. You get all of that culture and tradition in Kyoto. You get great food in Osaka. So it's just also a very well-balanced itinerary because you do get to kind of taste a little bit of everything that that Japan has to offer.
Right. Now, what we will discuss in more depth in the podcast, and you'll touch on briefly here as a teaser, getting outside the Golden Route, you still get, the best of, so to speak, be it up in Hokkaido, or down in Kyushu, etc. But I'm going to make, again, another assumption here that by getting away from the main route, would you start seeing more of a traditional Japan, or is it still a balanced mix between old and new in the other regions of Japan?
I would say you start seeing a different side of Japan because, these spots like Tokyo and Kyoto and Osaka are very well accustomed to, travelers, tourists, everybody goes there. You're going to encounter crowds, all of the kind of like standard stuff that people want to do. So when you venture a little bit off the beaten path, even for a day trip or an overnight, you're going to see other facets of Japan that you won't necessarily see just in the Golden Route, whether that's like a deep dive into hot spring culture in Kyushu, or seeing the beautiful like alpine landscapes up in like Nagano, or up near Kanazawa or Gifu or anything. Just depending where you go, you're going to see something really unique and different that you wouldn't see on the Golden Route. So it adds like this sort of elevated experience to the standard, I would say.
Right. So a couple of keywords there. You can have it by adding on, which I think Rose will touch on in her presentation, adding on to the Golden Route, you can elevate your overall Japan experience, or you being the agents and in turn passing on to your clients. So you can have an elevated Japan experience beyond the norm of just the Golden Route. And as we will discuss in more depth in our podcast, this also leads to return visits to Japan, where you can do the Golden Route in the first run, maybe elevate it, but come back for, the north or the south and whatnot. So on that note, let's me now pass the mic and the camera over to Rose, and she will give you all out there a 101 on Japan, the Golden Route, and some little add-ons that will tickle your fancy and tease you, hopefully, into joining us for our podcast. So, Rose, over to you.
All right. So, hey there, everyone. So, again, I'm with the Japan National Tourism Organization. So, we're the government, we're nonprofit. My goal is really to just give you all the info that you would need to book a Japan trip. So, like Dawn said, I'm going to start with a little bit of 101 info, kind of introduce the basics. But then I'm also going to give you a little bit of teasers of some other land itineraries that we'll get into in the podcast. So to start, Japan is considered a very accessible destination. We've got nonstop flights available all throughout the country. Now, these flights don't just connect you to like Narita or Haneda International, which are the airports closest to Tokyo, but we've got other hubs like Kansai International that are closer to hotspot destinations in the west, like Osaka and Kyoto. And of course, we've got lots of airports all throughout the country if you need to make those domestic connections to other regions. So I'm sure if you're tuning in today, you've probably noticed Japan is really popular at the moment, and for good reason. We have all of that great tradition and culture alongside the sort of glitz and glamour of those modern metropolises like Dawn and I were talking about. We have that really nice balance. And also when it comes to luxury these days, travelers don't just want material goods anymore, right? They want these authentic, immersive, exclusive experiences in the places that they visit. They really want to feel that it's unique and elevated. And what's really nice about Japan is you get that authenticity, you get that immersion pretty much anywhere you go, but you don't have to sacrifice creature comforts or modern amenities to get it. Now, Japan is a very longitudinal island, right, going from north to south. So we've got areas up north that are subarctic, areas down south that are subtropical, and pretty much everything under the sun in between. So it is very popular for adventure travel. We've got spots for diving, cycling, skiing, hiking, paragliding, you name it, we've probably got it. But if you're like me and you like relaxing in nature, you would rather look at Mount Fuji instead of climbing it. You also have your pick of, parks with seasonal blooms, traditional gardens, flower fields, and more. There we go. Whoop. So talking about accommodations, which we touched on briefly. So of course, there are lots of really wonderful hotels throughout the country, but you can also experience some really unique styles of accommodations during your stay. We typically recommend staying in a ryokan at least once. So this is a traditional Japanese inn. Typically you sleep in futons, but some do have Western style beds as well. You get those beautiful tatami floors and typically access to hot springs. Another really unique option is shukubo. So this is where you stay in a Buddhist temple. So really good for unplugging. You can enjoy the grounds, maybe try some sutra writings and meditation, and you can also dine on vegan Buddhist cuisine. Now, if you want something a little bit more rustic, a little bit more homey, you can try minshuku. So this is kind of like a B&B style. You'll see this really prevalent in the countryside. It's really great for country stays. But if you do want to feel like nobility, you can book a stay at a Japanese castle. There are only 2 castles in Japan that offer this experience, but it's really great for those fancier folks who want to feel like royalty. Now, I do want to touch again on ryokans. So if you stay at one of these establishments, you'll, again, likely get access to hot springs. So important to note, hot springs exist all over the country. They're all known for their own mineral properties, medicinal benefits. So staying overnight's a really great option to luxuriate, take your time in those waters. One thing to note is that hot springs are typically communal, which can make some clients a little self-conscious, but for them, we recommend maybe booking a private hot spring bath in their room, or you can sometimes reserve that public bath for a private experience for a set period. You can also find hot spring towns in Japan that will have many ryokan options available, typically eateries and shops. It's very walkable. So that's also a really cool experience that you can do, is a hot spring town experience. And some onsen do have daytime options. So if you don't have time to stay overnight, you might be able to just pop in for a bit of a soak before going on your way. Now, of course, I do have to mention food. So Japanese food is a designated UNESCO intangible cultural heritage. And fun fact, Tokyo has the most Michelin star restaurants of any city in the world. So great bragging rights for Tokyo. There's also a bit of a misconception that going out to eat in Japan is going to be this massive expense, probably because going out for like a nice sushi dinner in the States runs up the bill. But not only is it way cheaper than in the States, but the exchange rate is about, I think last I checked, close to 150 yen to the dollar, which is about 50% more than the standard rate. So really going to Japan now, you're getting your bang for your buck. Now, if you have clients who want to get their hands dirty, we do have a lot of really wonderful crafts and workshops they can join. This really ranges from washi paper making, ceramics, flower arrangement, calligraphy. I personally think these are great options for making your own souvenirs because you've got a master artisan standing there looking over you, so you know it's going to look good in the end. It's going to pass a threshold of quality, but at the same time, you can add that personal touch to make it a nice memento of your time in Japan. But if you're more of a foodie, we also have some foodie experiences like making your own sushi, sweets, udon noodles, or you can join more intricate experiences like tea ceremony. Now, people do ask me, when is the best time to go to Japan? And I have to be honest and say that there's not really a wrong time to go. It's sort of a different strokes for different folks sort of situation. There is something special that you can do at any time in Japan. In the summer, for example, we've got great festivals and fireworks displays. You can also climb Mount Fuji in the summer. I'm really partial to autumn just because I love the fall foliage in Japan, and also it's harvest season, so really good food coming in. In the winter, of course, great if you are a fan of snowboarding and skiing. It's also a nice time to soak in those hot springs and look out on the snowy landscape. But of course, a lot of people do want to catch those iconic cherry blossoms. So I do have some tips for you if you plan to book that period for your clients. So there is a misconception here as well that they only bloom in late March to early April. This is true for a lot of the mainland. But the blooms will start from south to north. So areas down south see them sooner, areas up north see them later. So for example, if you go in Okinawa late January, early February, you can see them, versus if you go up to Hokkaido in early May is when they're in full bloom. So this is another sort of nice motivation to sort of get off the beaten path, because you can chase the blossoms in what seems to be off season almost for the cherry blossoms, but it's the perfect time in those areas. And also I will say that there are hundreds of species of cherry blossoms. Some are early bloomers, some are late bloomers. So even if you miss the typical species, you might be able to catch them in sort of like the end or beginning windows there. Now, moving on to transportation. So Japan is very well known for its extensive train networks that run through the country, particularly the Shinkansen, which is the high-speed bullet train in Japan. But we also have limited express and local lines, metros, trams, buses, ferries. You can buy tickets for all of these at the stations or, online in advance. You can also pick up an IC card, which is sort of like a tap on, tap off. You just load it up with cash. You get on, you get off, and it's automatically subtracted with the fare for you. So nice for taking the headache out of all the calculations. But of course, private transfer is a great option for clients who prefer that. And if you're an international license holder, fun fact, some cars even have English GPS options. Now, when you're getting around Japan, you have a few options for staying connected. Of course, you can contact your phone carrier, see what plans they might have, but you can also get pocket Wi-Fi or a travel SIM. You can typically find these at arrivals, but if you need to make calls, maybe travel SIM is the way to go. If not, pocket Wi-Fi is great. Usually it connects up to 10 devices at once, so it's really nice if you're traveling in a larger group, but you will find some free Wi-Fi here and there in some of the major areas. Now, Japan is considered one of the safest places to travel and walk around. Most people are really friendly and accommodating, so I like to reassure people that with some common sense, you're going to get through your trip just fine. But if you've lost an item or you yourself have become lost, just look for koban. So these are small local police stations, and they can assist with directions, maps, lost and found, and emergency services as well. Now, talking about money. So an important thing to remember is Japan is a very cash-based society. Of course, in the major cities, you can use your cards. But as you get into the more like mom and pop shops or a bit more in the countryside, they might only accept cash. So always good to have some yen on hand. You can, of course, exchange at the airport. You can order from your bank. And you can also withdraw from ATMs in the country as well. Just make sure you put in a travel notice if you need to do that. And also, fun fact, there is no tipping culture in Japan. You'll find that if you leave a tip on your table at a restaurant, the waiter's going to be chasing you down the street to give you your forgotten change. Now, just briefly touching on those of you who have clients who like cruising. So cruising and land are great to pair together for Japan. We've got over 50 major ports scattered throughout the country. And it's just a really nice way to also get a sense of some of that regionality across Japan. From mid-range to high-end luxury lines, we've got lots of cruise lines that are now selling year-round itineraries. And so it's just really great if you then also want to pair it with a land itinerary after. Speaking of, so in terms of land itineraries, the one that Dawn and I talked about briefly, and it's kind of the major draw for first-time visitors, is the Golden Route. So this is probably the most well-known itinerary because, again, it's got a little bit of everything. You have big city in Tokyo, you get tradition in Kyoto, some great food in Osaka. So again, it's a really nice snapshot of the country. So I'll review these cities for you really briefly. So when you fly into Japan, probably you're going to fly into Tokyo. So great place to start your journey. Of course, this is an iconic metropolis. There's so much to do and see in Tokyo. I lived here for about 4 years, and I still feel like I discover something new every time I go. So it is considered the center of pop culture, shopping, fashion, technology, and it's really such a versatile city that you can create countless itineraries depending on what your clients are interested in. So if they want to shop for anime or brand goods in Akihabara or Ginza, or if they want to see all the cool, funky street fashion in Harajuku, relax at museums in Ueno, or see some temples and shrines in Asakusa, there's really something for everyone in Tokyo. And I will also add that you don't really think of Tokyo as like a nature-y place necessarily, but you will find little pockets of greenery all throughout the city, including beautiful parks, botanical gardens, landscape gardens with tea houses, some of them just smack dab in the middle of the city. So it's a nice little additional element if you want to get some nature while you're in the city. So next up is Kyoto. So you can get here on the bullet train. It's the old capital of Japan, and this is really where you're going to get all of that great tradition. So we've got traditional architecture. We have your pick of 2,000 temples and shrines, 17 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So again, great place to stay in a ryokan. You can enjoy activities like tea ceremony, kimono dressing, or even have a famous geiko performance. So this is a really nice once-in-a-lifetime experience where they'll sing, they'll dance, they'll pour your drinks, have lively conversation, even teach you some traditional geisha games that you can play with them. Now, I will say that Kyoto has been seeing a lot of foot traffic these days. Crowds are getting a little bit crazy, especially in cherry blossom season. So my recommendation is to get to all of the popular spots really nice and early. Make sure to beat the crowds, travel smart. And then finally, just next door is Osaka. So this city is actually nicknamed Japan's Kitchen, with over 1,000 restaurants in the Dotonbori area. So while Tokyo is kind of known more for its Michelin star restaurants, I would say that Osaka, while they also have that, they're really known for their street foods like okonomiyaki, takoyaki, kushikatsu, all foreign words, I know. They're just fried foods that go well with beer. Now, actually, the local phrase in Osaka is kui daore, which is eat till you drop, and you definitely will. It's really common to just hop around all of the bars and restaurants, and Osakans are really friendly people. You're bound to make some friends while you're out and about. But I will also say that Osaka is a very family-friendly destination. We've got great local attractions like Universal Studios. We've got Osaka Kaiyukan Aquarium, and Osaka Castle's right in the city center. So it's just a great city to sort of round out that land itinerary. You can kind of eat your fill, see the sights, and then head home. Now, that said, the Golden Route is very popular these days, and it's seeing a lot of foot traffic. So what we like to do to kind of encourage travel advisors with clients who want to do this route is also consider some variations to this route, because most clients, they're going to want to go to Tokyo, they're going to want to go to Kyoto. It's just non-negotiable. So very briefly, what I want to do to get the conversation just started about some of these variations and extensions, I just want to show you what they look like. You can start thinking about them. And then for the Goway podcast, you'll kind of be locked and loaded, ready to learn and deep dive into them. Bam! So now the map just got a lot more colorful, didn't it? So as you can see, we've got a lot of variation here. We've got extensions if you have clients who want to see more than just the standard. So I will just run through these very, very quickly just to give you a little taste of them, and then we'll get into them in depth in the podcast. So to start, let's talk about this variation of the Golden Route called the Dragon Route. So the reason it's called that, you see how it's like winding through there, kind of like that little dragon that's winding as well. Anyway. So this route is probably the second most popular land itinerary, and it is gaining traction. Now, the reason for this is that it has everything the Golden Route does, right? You've got Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka. But when you're getting between the two, you are cutting through the mountains up north to get there. So what this does is it adds a little bit of that novelty into the itinerary with beautiful mountain ranges, hiking spots, traditional architecture, and in my opinion, some of the best seafood and sake in the country. So if you do have clients who want a new itinerary, something different, even if they're new to Japan clients, definitely screenshot this route because it's very, very useful for that. And Goway does have itineraries that will take you up into this region. So definitely good to consider as an alternative. All right, so now we're going to talk extensions, specifically if you have clients who want to do the Golden Route or the Dragon Route, and they want to keep the party moving. So the first one is an extension into this peninsula here called the Kii Peninsula. So you can actually see that it connects cleanly to the Golden Route and the Dragon Route. So you can loop right through it on your way back to Tokyo and add in a few extra days. So when you think of the Kii Peninsula, what should come to mind is spirituality. So this is a very forested region, and it's known for one of the most spiritual pilgrimages in Japan called the Kumano Kodo. So this takes you through ancient forests to Buddhist temples, Shinto shrines. So if you have clients who are interested in sort of spirituality, harmony, and nature, this is the place to be. It's great for temple stays, forest bathing, trekking in general. So this is definitely one to remember for that. You can kind of pick and choose as well, how deep to go. You can do the entire route loop around, or you can just take a trip to Mount Koya, which is going to be on the FAM, which is one of the premier destinations for temple stays. Really, really beautiful. All right, so next extension, this is one of my favorites personally, is Setouchi. So this is really a seaside wonder where you have forests and Kii. In Setouchi, you're by the sea. So with this extension, you can see from Kyoto and Osaka, you just keep moving west. So this area is really well known for its art scene. Some of you might be familiar with the art islands like Naoshima, which is just off the coast of Okayama and Takamatsu. So great area for clients who want to see those artisanal crafts, visit museums, enjoy those outdoor displays on the islands. And also, if you just want to enjoy some of those seaside views, you can cross the inland sea from the mainland to Shikoku, either by ferry or actually by bicycle. There is a bike route called the Shimanami Kaido where you can bike across the inland sea, hopping across the different islands via bridges. It's very, very cool. And even if you're not athletic, I would say you'll be okay. I managed it, and I'm not the best at biking. I will also say that Hiroshima is a major city in this area, very well known for its historical sites and nature views. So even just tacking on a couple cities in this area is really, really worthwhile. This is another area that I lived in for about 4 years, so I'm definitely biased. But I think it's one of the best extensions that you can do. And then finally, one last extension, Kyushu. So this is way out west. You can get here on the bullet train, or you can even fly from Tokyo if you want. You can tack it on to one of the previous extensions if you want a grand tour, or just fly in if you want. So this area is really fascinating for a few reasons. So for one, it's a melting pot of culture. So a little bit of history. Back in the Edo period, this is like the 1600s to 1800s, like 300-year period, Japan was totally closed off to the rest of the world, except for a port in this region. So because of that, all of the influence from these other countries, all of these merchants and traders poured in from Kyushu. So as you go around, you're going to see these little touches of Chinese, Portuguese, and Dutch culture. It's very, very cool. But what it's also very well known for is being a geothermal wonderland. So lots of seismic activity over the years has created calderas, volcanoes, gorges, and of course, onsen or hot springs. So it's a premier destination for taking a dip. A typical combo of activity here is getting out and about in those wild landscapes, but then having a nice hot spring retreat after to kind of soak those sore muscles. So I would say if you're looking for wilderness experiences or relaxation, Kyushu is one of the top regions to consider adding to the itinerary. So I wish I could get more into detail with all these areas, but it's a little early. We're going to get into it in the podcast, I think. So that's where we'll start digging into all these different hidden gems that you can visit outside the Golden Route. So definitely be sure to tune in for more of a deep dive. And I know that was a lot of information, but if you ever need a refresher, you can obviously replay this video, but you can also access our website for some resources. We've got a travel, trade, and media page with lots of great Japan tips, our B2B newsletter for travel advisors. And we also have a luxury-specific website for those of you with clients who are looking for those sort of elevated experiences, from high-end accommodations to private food tastings, atelier tours, and what have you. But if you need to get in touch with one of our offices, I'm from the LA office. So if you're more on the west side, west of the Mississippi, reach out to us. If you're on the east, we do have a more local New York office for you as well. And then our website, of course, has tons of info for you, japan.travel. And I think that's it from me.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rose. There we go. And I just want to add to that last slide that I think Rose mentioned there's also an office here in Toronto, here being where we're recording from in our studio. So our Canadian agents will also have access. So you can obviously approach the New York office if you wish. So I have a handful of questions based off your presentation, which I'll ask you. They're in no specific order. But I also want to touch on the podcast. I've just made a list of things I will be asking Rose about in the podcast, which are probably not what would be expected from Japan, but I'm pretty sure Japan will have on offer. So again, please listen into the podcast for the hidden gems. I know it's a very used term, but I think it's very apt in this instance. And again, remember that you do need to listen to the webinar and get the code, which I'll give you soon, and the podcast with the code, and then do our modules in the Academy to be in the draw for the FAM to Japan. Hey, I'm a poet and I know it. A question for you. You mentioned when you were talking about Kyushu that in the Edo period, Japan was closed off and there was one port that was open. Now, I love the Japanese culture, the old culture, the samurai, all the formalities that go with it. And I also love the show Shogun. Is Shogun based around that area? Do you know the TV series?
I don't know. I didn't watch Shogun.
Yeah, okay. I'm just curious.
I don't have the subscription to that.
Right. Oh, okay.
To whatever service streams it.
Right. Apparently, it was a book, now a TV show, a modern make on it, and it's very historically accurate with respect to.
I have heard, yes.
Yeah, with everything.
Raving reviews. Yes. A lot of people in our office have watched it. I am just the outlier who hasn't. So rest assured, everyone else is very well versed.
Yeah. And I like how they paid attention to detail, and apparently I can't remember the main characters, but obviously the costumes are as accurate as they can be. The interaction between different classes is very apt. Even the way this woman speaks, the main character, the way because she's modeled on a historical figure, the way she speaks, walks, and even writes is all true to it. Anyway, I believe it may be simply because you mentioned, Rose, that it was a Portuguese port, and this is based around the Portuguese traders, et cetera, and Japan opening up. Anyway, that's an aside. It's a really good show to go and watch, even if you're not going to travel to Japan. What show?
I would say if they want to go, say if you have folks who want to go to Kyushu, so that port area is in Nagasaki. And what's really interesting in Nagasaki is as you kind of go around the city, you're going to see that really fascinating contrast. You'll see like churches right next to, Buddhist temples. And, they've got the Nagasaki Chinatown as well, where you can have like lots of bites to eat. So it's a really, really fascinating city with like this incredible melting pot of culture.
Wow, okay. You bring up the churches, and again, because I like the history and I like a good movie, there's another film out there I think it's called The Silence, with Adam Driver and I can't remember the guy. He was one of the Spider-Man, and it's about the introduction of Christianity into Japan. I think it's I can't remember the sect of the Christians, but anyway, it's a very interesting film as well. So there we go. A few movies to watch on old Japan.
I'll put it as my homework.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Well, that wasn't directed at you, Rose, necessarily, but for our agents out there as well. A question then. Again, these are no particular order. The Golden Route we've established is probably the most popular first-time visiting itinerary. How busy is Japan, particularly post-COVID? Are there lots of travelers in Japan in general? naturally will be concentrated on the Golden Route. The reason I bring it up is a lot of people, and this leads into our podcast subject, a lot of people looking, clients coming to agents coming to us, looking for the big countries, but less trafficked, less touristed, a little bit quieter. So how would you position the Golden Route to some of the other areas?
Yeah, it's interesting because, of course, people do want that. They want fewer crowds. And I will say that we have gotten more and more popular every year since reopening from COVID. We've been breaking traveler records year after year. But at the same time, people still want to go to Tokyo and go to Kyoto. So I would say, again, if you want to do those cities, you can absolutely do them. But you can also take lots of overnights from them to other areas, or again, just kind of go a different trajectory to go between the two. You can always do Tokyo and then go a bit up north, fly up to Hokkaido, do a bit of time there, maybe fly down and, see Kyoto and, maybe Hiroshima or something. You can find all these little variations where you can get that off the beaten path experience with fewer crowds, but you can still see your beloved Tokyo and Kyoto.
So again, you can elevate your itinerary. When we use the word elevate, doesn't necessarily mean have to move up in levels of service. It could be elevated by, as Rose mentions, just going outside of the big cities to other areas, the quieter areas, if you or your clients are looking for that, at least taste of a quieter Japan experience. When it comes to ryokan, I was speaking to a friend of mine on the weekend who's traveled to Asia extensively and Japan extensively, and she wasn't a fan of ryokan simply because it is traditional. This will lead to my question. It's very traditional. You sleep on the floor, and she didn't find it herself that inspiring. But my understanding is there are different levels of ryokan experiences. It's not just going into a room and sleeping there for the night. There's a whole lot of maybe ceremony before and after. So can you expand on maybe what choices you have when it comes to a traditional in-stay in Japan?
Sure. Yeah. So what should be of comfort then to her is that there are ryokan that do have Western style beds. So if you're not comfortable sleeping in the futons, don't worry. You do have other options there if you want to be more comfortable on that front. But yes, I would say that staying in a ryokan, it's not just like it's the place where you leave your bags and then you go out and about. Like, it is a place where you can really relax, kind of take a load off. So what a lot of people do when they check into the ryokan is they will have a dip in their hot springs, and then they will go back to their room and have their futon set up for them, or they'll have their meal already prepared and waiting, and you can have these like fabulous course meals with like the freshest seasonal cuisine just brought right to your room to enjoy. So a lot of people, they'll get to their ryokan and they won't leave it. They will spend the entire evening there just like enjoying all of the amenities and services that they have to offer.
Well, that's what I mentioned to my friend as well, that my one experience years ago was not just to sleep there. It was the whole sort of preamble before and after, and the whole, again, it can be as culturally immersive as you choose. So that's, again, as Rose mentioned, you've got the Western beds if needed. The food can be accommodated, not in every single ryokan, but it can be accommodated as well if you're not into hardcore Japanese meals. But it's not just the hotel or the overnight experience. It's a cultural immersion in itself. And part of that, and it was on your slide when you're talking about the onsen, the hot springs, you had a subheading there, tattoos. So I'd like to just chat about that. Now, Goway has clients of all age groups, from the younger to the older. Now, most of the older clientele probably won't have tattoos. A lot of the younger people these days, tattoos is very in favor. So let me ask you, in general, tattoos in Japan, but particularly tattoos in the hot spring environment.
Sure. So there are traditional establishments in Japan like ryokan where visible tattoos are not allowed. Like if you're going to go into the onsen, which is typically communal, you can't have visible tattoos. Now, if you have a small tattoo, you can like slap a patch on there and be none the wiser. But if you've got like a full arm or like a back piece, you still do have some options. One thing that you can do is, just get a room with a private bath in the room. So then you have full privacy, which some people actually want anyway, that they're not ready to strip down in front of a bunch of strangers. But you can also reserve sometimes those public baths for a set period. So for example, I have a tattoo. I went to an onsen in February, and I just reserved it for like a 45-minute block. I had the whole room to myself. I just could relax in the waters, and it was no issue. Now, I will say...
Sorry. After
Sorry.
You. No, after you.
I will say that there are also tattoo-friendly onsen. So I think we might have a list of them on our website. But there are, for example, like one great one I love recommending people is Kinosaki Onsen, because you can get there from Kyoto in like a couple hours on the train. And they're known for their 7 hot spring baths that you can hop around in, and they're all tattoo friendly. So there are certain areas and certain properties where it won't be an issue.
So in general, culturally, how are tattoos viewed? Because again, it is a very common practice in North America to have multiple tattoos. I think that's, I can't remember what the term is, but still, so if you're in shorts as a male or a female walking around the streets and you have your legs tattooed or your arms are tattooed and it's showing, is that an issue just basically wandering around most of Japan?
No, it's not a problem. I would say the only place that you would need to just be aware of it are those specific instances, like, being in a public hot spring. I think sometimes like gyms can be a little bit strict about it, or like public pools, things like that. But just walking out and about, just as a tourist, you absolutely don't need to worry about it. A lot of young Japanese people now are also getting tattoos. It's becoming a lot more commonplace. Yeah.
Okay. So there's that modern culture creeping in a bit, I guess. You mentioned castles, and you said only 2 castles are available to stay in. Was that 2 castles in an area, or 2 castles in all of Japan?
2 different areas. One of them is in Kyushu, Hirado Castle, and then there's Ozu Castle in Shikoku. So those are the 2 where you can book a stay and be a royal.
Okay, so if a agent wants to recommend that, or a client comes to an agent with that, do you need to book further ahead because there's only a couple of them? I assume that would be a very sought after experience.
I'm not sure how often they get booked. It is a very high-end, very luxury experience. Like there's a whole experience kind of packaged in with staying at the castle. Like you have a bunch of retainers who are there to like welcome you, and they have ceremonial aspects to it as well. So there's a lot included in the experience.
Oh, right. So it's not like in India, a lot of old Raj castles are now modern day hotels. So it's not that. It is... Well, I guess it is that, but it's also a much more refined experience, as you say. It's a very exclusive thing.
Yes, very exclusive, kind of your own private castle experience, yeah.
Okay. As I said, this is no particular order. You mentioned the trains, which I think Japan is very famous for. You mentioned getting around, the cards you can buy. So when a client comes to us, we will pre-book trains, if it's a structured itinerary, of course. But I think Rose, in her examples there, shows that, and this is my question to you, Rose, should someone want to do some independent travel in Japan, because it is Japan and it's very switched on, you've already mentioned getting around is easy. From a language point of view, I would assume the golden route, there's enough people who will speak English to survive. But if people do start getting off the beaten track, what happens, excluding translation apps, which everyone has now? Is English used widely or understood outside of the main areas?
It does depend. I mean, you will encounter, especially if you're going by train, like through the major train stations, they're so used to foot traffic at this point. And also, I will say that leading up to the Olympics in Tokyo, the 2020 Olympics, Japan really bumped up the English signage in all of like the stations. So it's very easy to navigate these days. But I would say that, as you're going around, probably someone can help you out. It might be broken English, but I really wouldn't be wary about that. I will say that Japanese folks are really nice about things. Even if you don't speak the same language, they will grab your hand and take you to the place that you're asking how to get there. They're very, very kind about things. Right.
Well, I think that's a reputation Japan has, that they're very welcoming, very friendly, and will do what they can to assist in all circumstances. Now, you said when you were living in Japan, you were teaching English. So I assume you know this. Young children coming through the school system there, is English part of the curriculum? Like I know in Latin America it is. A lot of European countries it is. Does Japan sort of encourage their youth to learn English?
So I taught in elementary school and middle school. So in my day, this was like 10 years ago, for the elementary schools, I think they were only just starting to introduce like learning English in a more structured way. When I was there, it was actually just like foreign language activities where it was, playing games and learning vocabulary, like not super structured. I do think that they are now introducing a little bit more structure into the young ages. So people do study English typically in like the middle schools and the high schools. But I will say that unlike the Socratic method that we have kind of in the States where it's back and forth, it is very much like teacher lectures and the student listens. And so they might get a little bit nervous actually trying to speak, but they will try their best.
Okay, cool. I would assume that Japan is groups friendly. So in Goway World, it's 10 or more for a group. So if we do have an agent out there wanting to bring a group to Japan, with respect to accommodation, transport, obviously Japan, I can assume, can literally accommodate groups of 10 to 100.
Sure.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. And one thing I'd like to bring up, that's it for my questions, believe it or not. One thing I would like to highlight, though, and this came out in the Japan panels we had at our Asia show, a point that was brought up by some of our partners in country was to let people know, and Rose, you've already touched on it too, that Japan is not a crazy expensive country. It's actually very, very affordable. Exchange rates have helped that recently, but the comparison we used on our Japan panel was, a good dinner at a 4-star restaurant, 5-star restaurant is equivalent to what you'll pay here in Toronto or New York or probably LA. And if you want to eat more traditional, more local, then it's very, very affordable. And that also extends to maybe not the castles, but some of the accommodation and the services there as well. And again, as you've heard, you've got choices of independent travel, private service, which is what Goway always recommends, at least portions of your itinerary to be private services. So the flexibility in Japan is there as well as the affordability. Okay, time out. That's it for me. I'm going to round off unless you want me to ask you something in particular.
I don't have anything in mind.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to give the code for the FAM and stuff like that, and then we'll wrap up. And if you want to tease out to the podcast as well, we'll say goodbye from there. Okay, I'll pick it up.
Sure.
Okay, so as I mentioned, that is the end of my list of questions. I think Rose covered the 101 side of things very, very well, as she does. She knows the destination obviously very, very well and intimately. So, as mentioned also before, to be in the FAM, you have to have listened to this webinar, and you need the following code when you submit your name for the FAM. And again, you need to have completed this webinar, as well as our podcast and the Japan course in our Travel Academy. But the code you need to submit for the webinar is JNTO, Japan Nelly Tom Ottawa, W for webinar, strange enough, JNTOW008. So when you come to submit for the FAM, and we'll give you all the information on how to do that at a later date, you'll need that code. And there'll be a separate one, different one for the podcast, which we'll supply as well. Rose, is there anything you'd like to say to our travel partners out there before we go about Japan 101, or if you want to tease a little bit more about what we'll be discussing in the podcast?
Yeah, I mean, today what we covered was kind of starting off with, I would say, the basic foundation of what you would need to start comfortably selling Japan. But when we get to the podcast, you're going to start seeing all of those like different sides of Japan that we touched on in our conversation, all of those little elevated experiences and kind of added value destinations that can really just take your itinerary to a whole new level. So definitely tune in for that.
Okay, perfect. And I just had a thought. Been doing these podcasts or webinars for a while now, and I've never mentioned this, but I should have. It's very unsocial media of me. For the podcast, because we're not going to we're recording, I think, in maybe 2 weeks or so, or maybe a bit longer than that. So there's time between now when this goes live and when the podcast comes out. If there are any questions or areas, not the 101 stuff, but different areas of Japan that you'd like us to address, you can leave a comment on our YouTube channel or on our Facebook group, and I will be sure to ask Rose about said questions. So on that note, I'd like to thank Rose for her time coming from, I assume, what is sunny LA. It's always sunny in LA, isn't it, Rose?
It was very cloudy this morning, but usually the clouds burn off by like about 10 or 11 a.m.
Oh, okay. Well, it's beautiful and sunny here in Toronto, which is nice. So, Rose, again, as always, thank you for your time. You're always a wealth of information, and I can hear the passion about Japan coming through in your presentation. And as you and I know, you know, we talk about same subjects over and over again, but you know, I can tell when someone really loves something because you can still hear the passion after, I don't know, the thousandth time you've spoken or presented about Japan. I can still hear it in your voice and in your heart. It's wonderful. It is a beautiful destination. I've been a couple of times a long time ago. I want to get back and see how, you know, how Japan has changed and how it's still the same. So any questions you have about Japan, obviously you can reach out to the JNTO boards directly, but of course you can speak to your Goway destination specialists, many of whom, have also done, as Rose has done, have lived in Japan for an extended period of time, have traveled there extensively. Actually, I think we have a couple of Japanese people, Japanese by birth, who are on our Asia team as well. So we have a immense amount of in-house local expertise when it comes to Japan. When you come to us with your client's request for that ultimate, bespoke, unique itinerary. So, Rose, thank you. And as always, to you out there, thank you for carving out an hour of your time. We know how busy you are, and we will talk to you, and you'll hear from us in the upcoming podcast. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye.